Hey everyone, as you're getting ready to write your prospectus and ultimately your persuasive research paper, I just want to review with you what I think you probably already know about thesis statements in persuasive essays. The most important thing to remember about your thesis statement, well, these are the four things I think you need to remember. First, you need to take a position. It needs to be a debatable position that some reasonable people in your audience might disagree with. Thesis statements in persuasive essays are also clear and specific. Instead of using vague words or instead of being too broad, they need to fit the scope of your essay. So if you're writing an essay that's going to be at least 6 or 7 pages long, you need to make sure that your thesis statement isn't so broad that you won't be able to support it, which leads to the next thing. Thesis statements for this kind of paper need to be supportable with the research that you have done. You need to be able to back up the claim that you're making. So those are some things to think about as you're crafting your thesis statement. You do want it to reflect where you stand. So this is the first time this semester I'm asking for your position on the research that you've been doing. So hopefully that position is informed by your research as well as your own reasoning. Here are just a few things to keep in mind. Well, I've already covered the stuff at the top here. In this handout, I wanted to show you some samples. So you've heard me mention a couple times in the semester the possible research question, should school resource officers or SROs be removed from public high schools? There's been a lot of debate about whether we should not have police officers in schools. So here are some general statements. School resources officers are controversial. Due to increased controversy, some student advocates want to remove SROs. Some research has linked SROs to increased arrests and more conflicts, which is why some student advocates want to remove them. With increased concern about school shootings, many people feel safer with SROs around. Now notice how all of those are good points to make, especially maybe early in a paper when you're establishing the debate, but none of them actually states what the writer's position is yet. So let's look at these. Here are a couple possible thesis statements. School districts should continue to employ school resource officers because they perform a valuable role in public high schools, reducing violence and instilling a sense of security in students and staff. Here's an example of a statement that makes a claim that some readers, even some experts, might disagree with. Or the second sample, research shows that the presence of SROs in schools is linked to higher arrest rates and school suspensions, all while the underlying cause of behavior disruptions go unaddressed. Therefore, SROs should be removed from schools and replaced with mental health professionals. So that's a different position, right? Either one of these could work in a prospectus or in a research paper like what I'm asking for you this semester. They both take a debatable position, and it's possible that reasonable people in the audience could disagree with this, right? They both could be supported with research in the scope of a 6 or 7 page research paper, okay? I also want to comment about the fact that a thesis statement doesn't have to be a hard yes or a hard no, right? Some of you have said that you think you might kind of see both sides of the issue and maybe you want to take a middle ground position. And that you should definitely feel comfortable doing if that's where you stand. I don't want you to take a position that you don't actually believe. So let's look at a couple possible middle ground positions. Despite legitimate concerns, SROs in schools aren't going away anytime soon, so states should invest in improving the training they have before they're hired, and so on. Or here's another one. While the concerns about SROs are legitimate, removing them entirely seems to make schools vulnerable to violence. Therefore, schools should look into reducing their reliance on SROs while not eliminating them completely. Do you see how both of these thesis statements take sort of a middle ground position, recognizing both the benefits and the problems of SROs in schools? So these are just a few of the examples of thesis statements. Look at the examples of prospectuses and research papers that I've provided you, and look to see how these writers are expressing a position, and then the entire essay or the entire prospectus stay focused on supporting that position. Okay? If you have Any questions? If you want to talk through a thesis statement, you know that the Writing Center will help you do that, but I can help you with that as well. You can set up an appointment with me, as always. I do want to touch on this last point. Your thesis statement doesn't have to be in one sentence. Notice how a couple of these I'm sort of providing a preview of my reasoning in one sentence and then my actual position in the next sentence, theoretically. Okay, so don't try to oversimplify everything and dumb it down into one sentence. You can expand into a couple sentences if you need to. That's just fine. Okay, so there's your thesis statement review. You want to take a position that's debatable, that some reasonable people could disagree with, and that you can support and focus on in your entire long research paper. Again, reach out to me if you have any questions.